That's the clacker. So aim the colored way at this camera, look at it, smile, and say action.
Action.
Cool. Welcome to episode 39 of Inside Real Estate. So a lot of times we're having on the realtors and we're having on the mortgage people and whatnot, but there's a lot more that's in and around real estate. And today we have on Mike Zappitelli of Zappitelli Builders. And Mike, thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just get started with a little background on you. Just tell us, about yourself, your business, how you got started.
So we're a family-owned business based out of Westchester, PA. The ongoing joke all through my childhood, everything was my dad had me swinging a hammer on site when I was 2 years old. So I grew up in the trades, went all through simple things, growing up with my dad with, doing little stuff, sweeping, but I really paid attention to the trade, really got involved with the craft, went all the way through Votech, went to Pennsylvania College of Technology. I wasn't going to go to college. I was ready to be, right in the trade, hands-on. Pretty much went to college to get the piece of paper, got out, and, was running my dad's company there, and went back to Drexel, and I was under the guidance of a superintendent from a co-op there. He said, you need to go further. You either need to go on your own or go like the top level of the company. So I left, and at that time, my dad was kind of sectoring into the adult living, adult retirement, commercial sector. So I took all the residential, and it's kind of where I'm at. That's where I'm at today, and broke into it.
Yeah. What's your earliest memory of being on the job site with your family? You got or a good one.
Picture-wise, like I've seen, stuff from when I was 3 years old, kind of, with tools on site. I have a picture in my office from my dad's first house that he built in 1988. I don't remember it. At that time, I was two and a half. Look, there's a lot of memories going back. When we moved out from Delaware County, Chester County, in 91, and that was kind of like the renovation boom. We did a lot of interior renovations, and there's certainly memories. I would say one that really stuck out was we did a very large basement and a development around here, and the day that we set the marble floors in the basement, the kids came through on razor scooters with a marker and just drew all over the floor. So there's things like that. It's that never leave your mind.
Dad hit the fan on that one.
Luckily, that was a very good client. Yeah. So they, totally understood what they had with their boys.
That's crazy. At what point did you kind of, was it always just kind of because of how you grew up, was it always just kind of foregone conclusion you were going to end up here? Or was there a point where you were like, yeah, I really love this and this is what I'm doing?
So honestly, as cliche as it sounds, I don't know anything else. The carpentry's in my blood. I'm a carpenter by trade. I can do a little bit of each trade. I'm not, I have plenty of subs that specialize in their own trade, but I can do a little bit, enough to, move forward. But I'm a carpenter by trade, and that's, how I grew up. I want to say it's always been in my blood, even all, through grade school, middle school, I was doing, all different kinds of woodcraft projects. Yeah. It's the way it's always been for me.
Let's talk a little bit about more your business in general. Like, what is it you guys are really doing? Like, how would you really tell people what you're doing?
My son's 8, so probably about 8-10 years ago, I've really branched on, honestly bought, one lot, spot lot, built a house, and that's how the new construction part of my business started building and, growing fast. Prior to that, up until about 8 years ago, I was full hands-on. I was doing a lot of renovations, a load of, kitchens and bathrooms in this area, and I was full hands-on all the way through Have my core group of plumber, electrician, as I needed there. But once I kind of sectored into the new construction world, um, there's I'm still hands on. So I didn't want to lose that part of the craft. So I would say right now, and we're 50-50, renovations, new construction. There's a lot of people that, see the name out there and they don't think that we do the renovations anymore, but it's certainly there. We have a handful of them going on right now. It's pretty much what I've been doing all morning. So,
Is the renovations in it, are these high end renovations also?
yeah. So at this point we're doing kitchens, which I call first floor renovations, with taking walls down, opening up to give everybody, those 80s, 90s houses, the open floor plan that everybody wants with the new construction houses. So it's good and bad. You have clientele that doesn't want to move to be in a new construction house, but they want that, same floor plan, same design, everything that we're offering new construction to be put in their existing home. So it's.
Do you think that that's getting more and more I mean, I know it's popular, but do you think it's just kind of the way it's going at this point? Like, it's not just, hey, let's just update the tile in the bathroom. It's more like, hey, they're like, let's blow out some walls
It's
and create something special.
pretty much full blown. And what I keep hearing is, I've had plenty of clients that are like, we're gonna buy this house. It's not gonna be our forever house, and then we're gonna move on type thing. But it's the way that the market is, people don't want to give up their low rate. They don't want to get into a bigger mortgage. So the clientele that's buying the new construction is totally different than the renovation side, and it's they're staying there trying to you know live. I don't want to say live within their means, but live within their box there and have the modern amenities.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure a lot of times because I feel like a lot of society today, they move to just move these days.
Right.
It's like, but sometimes you see it's like you have a great lot, you have this, you have that. It's like, and if they have all of that, and it's just, hey, they need to fancy something up to just kind of freshen things up, and why not, right?
I mean, you can use myself as an example. We have a great lot, great house, modest size house, and I mean, I've had even my bank has asked me about a lot in this area that I bought, and they're like, "Are you going to move?" I'm like, "No, it's um, then it's there, but when there's there's going to be a lot of turnover in this area because even the house I grew up in down the street here, there's pretty much a quote unquote waiting list for the development, but people are going in there, and that's going to be the renovation boom.
Awesome. Are you gearing things? Are you trying to? I mean, you're based in Westchester. Are you? Do you do a lot in Westchester and the main line? Are you trying to push more to the main line, or what's?
We've done a lot in Westchester, obviously based out of Westchester, and it's my office is 10 minutes away.
Right.
I grew up. We've done a lot on the main line. We never lost it. It was more so renovations. We were down in Wynwood, Bryn Mawr, Villanova area. Probably Gladwin's probably as far down as I've gone personally. It's always been there, and again, down that area, it's renovations. We have a very good clientele that we're the only ones that they'll call.
Awesome. So, we do a lot of marketing in and around real estate. So over the years, like I've got the opportunity to shoot a lot of really nice houses with custom builders, and I notice a difference. Can you talk a little bit about like what's like there's builders and then there's what you do, right? There's the, hey, let's put up 200
Right.
200 townhomes, and then there's what you do. Describe the difference.
What I call myself is a boutique custom home builder on the new construction end. It's myself and my sister. My sister joined me about 10 years ago and she's my in-house interior designer. So you're truly dealing with the builder himself. I know there's, structures to other companies. We're small. I like to keep the craft involved. I like to meet, each client and, take it through all the way to the end to make it, family oriented. There's not, without naming other builders, there's not, we keep the family dynamic to it and keep it, as stress free as possible. And, you know, as much hands on as, I physically can there, not actually working, but they have that aspect that, the care is there and we're just not, slapping up on another house. We're building a home.
Are you guys capable of doing like huge projects? I'm sure you have big projects, but like if they wanted to do something, they wanted to put up 20,000 square foot home. Like,
Yeah.
is that something you guys
Yeah,
can do that kind of
absolutely.
thing?
And, in this area, it's, um, just as everybody would agree, it's the land that's hard to find. But yes, typically with, that size project, it's, your stage and it's full blown custom. We have a great, great partners between our architect, our bank and everybody involved there. It's just, it's a logistics business basically.
What's the biggest advantage or positive to going with a boutique custom builder versus just everyday builder?
So what I like boutique custom, is small. We're putting off, a max of a handful of houses a year. Um, I take everything from dirt, whether that's buying a lot with a house on it and taking it through subdivision or knocking it down and just, rebuilding there through the build and all the way to the end to we're at the settlement table. That's the boutique part of it that I call. And we're not looking for quantity. I'm not, building to produce, 25 homes a year. You get into like a regional or national builder, they're looking, everything's a number.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times I know with, nationals, it's a bigger company. You're not meeting with the builder personally. So, on our end, people like the fact that they can come, sit in our office, sit with Lauren, and they're touching, feeling everything, and knowing that, I'm physically the one that's going to be making decisions every day and on site with my guys that, it's not a pass through of chains to get to the
So
right person.
yes, so it's one of the how close they get to work with you,
Right.
so they don't feel like they're getting left in the dust or being pushed off to somebody
Yep.
else. They're actually dealing with you
Yep.
from soup to
Start to
nuts.
finish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When it comes to like details and stuff, one of the things that I did I did a shoot for this home. It's a national company. They have their low end stuff, and then the one that I'm about to talk about is their luxury brand, right? I went into this home. I guess it was okay. I mean, it was clean. I think the construction overall looked like it was well put together. The layout was kind of, I don't know, a little weird to me, but also one of the biggest things that drives me up a wall with like new construction is sometimes like the light switches in these houses where I had to leave the room that I was trying to turn on the lights to go like around the corner and somewhere else to find these switches. There was no rhyme or reason. It's like they just threw light switches in there. Does that happen in a
Yes.
boutique custom home?
So I'm actually glad that you picked that example. So when we branched into the, full blown new construction, and a lot of this was, we dealt with this during COVID. So we used a bigger electric firm company, and everything's to the minimum, and that's not what I'm used to. That's, I'm used to giving people, X, Y, and Z, kind of get what you want, not like boom, boom, boom per the plan. So, it's to your point where you have to go into another room to turn a switch on. I have OCD to the point of where if the screws aren't all the same direction on every plate, that, I'm going around checking that. I've had a one-man band electrician for the past 20 years. He's, kind of overlapped with, going into my dad. And he's now doing all my new construction because it's just, if it takes, a week or two longer, I know that we don't have to go into another room to turn a light switch on. All the screws are straight, circuits are done correctly. It's another thing that people don't see behind the scenes, behind the walls. Your wife goes to turn a hairdryer on and it's like shorting out the whole second floor.
Yeah.
So it's that part behind the walls also that
So you guys are making sure everything's
makes it different there.
So one of my other builder clients, I was having a conversation with him and like really talking to him, and I'm kind of getting the same vibe from you where I was talking with him, and it really there seems to be a passion there, and like really like loving what you guys do. And I kind of equate it from my experience with builders of your type, that you're almost like artists in your own way, from like everything that you do, because a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like you'll get somebody who wants, a custom build, and obviously they're going to have their input and tell you what they want, but then there's plenty of opportunities along the way for you to kind of guide them or maybe bring up something that they didn't think about. Can you talk a little bit about what that process is like, and maybe something you really enjoy about it?
I'm maybe too honest, brutally honest with my clients. So, and that's, a trait of mine that everybody seems to appreciate. To your point, it is an art, and every trade is an art. Mine was, the carpentry end of it, and that's pretty much like your finishing touch to the project, and that's, puts the cherry on top of the cake. I like being able to sit with clients, with Lauren, and put, the plans out. It's a bunch of lines, and we're taking their Pinterest pictures, Instagram reels, and kind of putting it all together, making a final drawing. It could be as simple. Could be as simple as like a first floor renovation, or we're doing this with a whole house, and then, bringing it to life at the end. But being able to customize, going through that, the options are honestly endless. And to be able to offer that, and not just, walk into a, call it, big box store, and you have to pick off the shelf type thing. I mean, the options are endless with what we do.
Okay. Talk about working with family.
It's the first question I get from a lot of people. So, look, I grew up in it. Again, it wasn't until about 10 years ago that Lauren and I were really side by side every day. She was, still in college, so there's a little bit of age gap there. But I grew up with it. I mean, every half day I had, every day off from school, I was working with my father, but I enjoyed it. There was never a question about that. And I had that all the way through until, I was doing renovations, really started going, on my own. We were still my father and I are still working together. Again, but he started branching towards commercial. Lauren and I can, have our battles. There might not be things that we agree on, but it's a relationship where you just keep moving on, and it's, done and over. Smoke blows over by the next day. It's hard because it's a constant, we go out to dinner or celebrate holidays. It seems like it's always about work.
Yep.
It never stops. And I think that, like, the mental part of it is hard.
Totally. Yeah. I introduced you to my father. He's my business partner also. And, it definitely, it has its shit,
Yeah.
but for sure. But the one thing that I love about it is like, you never have to worry about if you can trust that person,
Right.
or if they're like have best intentions in mind. And it's just like, and as you grow and things like that, to be able to build that with your family, I
Right.
really enjoy it, okay. So with Lauren, is she start to finish like you, or is there a point where you bring her in? Like, how does that all work out with her?
She's start to finish. So, she's pre-con involved with, designing plans that we have for new construction. The renovation side, she's brought in, day one before I'm even getting a full contract together to make sure that we have the correct allowances for, cabinets, counters, lighting, all that makes sense for this project.
Would you
Yep.
talk a little bit about it, what specifically she does in the process? Like, what's her role?
So basically, she's taking the client, holding their hand from day one. Colors, cabinets, exterior, interior. It's the entire house. Every part of your house, she is selecting alongside with the client, making sure that it's with their budget, or if it's over, that it's something that they're aware of. They want that little piece to go, the extra mile.
Will she tell you if you're about to make a stupid decision with color
I,
choices
I
and
mean,
stuff?
I can barely match my clothes, so that's always been like an ongoing joke. She's won awards. We've won awards together for design, and I couldn't do what I do on the new construction or on the renovation end at this point without her. I mean, she takes them start to finish. That's a whole, half of my business outside of, the on-site day-to-day, making sure that my crews and vendors, subs, everybody are on track to be able to work with the client and, have everything
Yeah.
there and ready, and that it, all the form and function works together. But she also goes, she'll take them to the end. We've done plenty of projects where, 3 months before we're ready to go to settlement, she'll furnish the entire house for the people. So it's truly a, all-inclusive package there.
I was going to ask you that. So with the furnishing the house, is that something that's like when they work with you that's like built into the process with you, or is that like, hey, if they want it?
So the furnishing of the house is if they want it,
Yeah.
custom. Lauren comes with me no matter what. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
we're not going out, hiring a third party
Do you
designer.
guys do they, because of the reputation and like they like what you guys do they go to do the furnishing stuff often, or is that
More times than you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be, look, there, a lot of times people are moving, from another house or out of town, whatever, to new construction. It could be one room. It could be the entire house. It's very customizable to what she does there.
I think that's awesome because I can't tell you the number of times that we go to, shoot a property and it's like the home's beautiful, but the people who live in
Right.
there have no clue what they're doing
Right.
on how to for the decor and everything else, and it's just like, man, this could have been so much better.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, she's, a project we have down the street, thanks to her, just won Best in Pennsylvania. She even works with, the virtual staging to make sure it's exactly the way that it needs to look. This one was a farmhouse from the 1700s, and it's very hard to put the vision in there for somebody to see how this can be, laid out and
Yeah.
what it could be used for, and down to the point of like the light fixture or, the color of the couch in the virtual staging, at least helps to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Some cool things that I've seen in like more custom homes. One thing that comes to mind is the gas like lanterns outside. What is do you have any like signature features that you like to add, or are there things that you really like to incorporate when possible to your projects?
So the gas lanterns, I built Lauren's house a few years ago. She was the first one. We love them. I'm more along the lines of, I kind of look at it as like my own house at the end, and they're great to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I also worry about like safety. So yeah. Over the past few years, I don't want to say signature, but like we've done a lot of arches. I craft them myself, and install them myself. I would say, that I keep going back to the design. The signature thing is that you're not locked into, you're not picking off like a sheet or, off a table somewhere. you can truly customize and see the craft at the end of the day. Um, you know, I've done so many kitchens, installed so many kitchens in my life that I got accustomed to a point of I was only doing inset cabinetry and full blown custom cabinetry, and that's something that I offer all of our clients. I think it makes all the difference in the world at the end of the day.
At least, and I'm sure it is that way for you as you've gone through, your career and progressed and everything else. I'm sure there's been things that maybe have been out of your comfort zone along the way, but probably have helped you evolve through those processes. What do you have an example of a client pushing you out of your comfort zone that turned out to be like awesome after the fact?
They've definitely been there. I mean, if I can't even count, how many at least renovations I've done.
Yeah.
There's been new construction homes with, finishes that are very specific to the client that, I can't say that neither Lauren or I agreed with, but it's, but it's again, it's the fit and fin. There's some times where that's,
Yeah.
what they want, and it's their home, and we're there to,
Sure.
to build a home for them.
Talk a little bit about like the community. So you grew up and are based out of Westchester, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does the do you guys do anything to be involved in the community aside from building the houses where people live?
Yes. So, I mean, I live in Westchester. I've been here since '91. My wife moved from Nottingham down here. I have an 8-year-old son. He's very involved in the business now. We're working with organizations that he's a part of, to help them give back to the community. We try to stay close knit, tight with our community. It's there's plenty of builders around here. There's plenty of renovation companies, but we try to give back, and do what we can to work with the community. I recently started a little club, because my son got so involved and, liked the trade. From what I went to Votech during high school, and from what I'm hearing now, that there's really not shop classes or anything like that in the schools anymore. It is a shame. So I started something because all his little buddies like to do the projects.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere else for them to learn. I mean, you can order a kit online, and I've done it for Mikey before, and he puts it together at home. But to be able to take these kids into a shop and use real tools and saws and all that, and play with fire, it's that I mean,
There's
right?
no substitute.
Yeah. That's my giving back right now. It's
So you started this.
Yes.
What's it called?
It's called Junior Builders Club.
Okay, and it based in Westchester, right?
Yes.
So how does that work? How do the kids get involved?
So basically, I started with Mikey's friends. We did, a group of 8. I came up with a couple projects. Something as simple as the first one was we made a Christmas tree out of 2x4s at Christmas time,
Mm-hmm.
and they took it and painted it. Very simple, but it gets them involved there. I kind of had everything pre-cut. I let them make the last cut, assisted by me, and that was like a big deal to them. The second one, I had them make an industrial lamp, so they got a little bit of putting pipe together, wiring the light bulb. I know it sat on wood base that we torched. I run it out of my shop, and it's I no more than a dozen kids at a time.
Do you have that kind of turnout?
Yeah, yes, it's been full. Honestly, it's been his friends, and every time somebody keeps seeing it, says, let me know when the next one is. We want to get our kid in there.
Isn't that crazy? Because I remember when I was probably in grade school, but they had these little kits where they had like these They were not good tools by any
Right.
means, but like they give you the wood and the
Yep.
directions and put all that stuff. I couldn't wait to get my hands on that stuff when I
Yeah.
was younger.
So
And did they eliminated all that stuff from schools, or I'm
from
not up on that, but
I'm not, from what I hear from, everybody going through school. I have an apprentice that's 20 years old. So, I mean, he's closer in age to my son than
Mhm.
me. And, he went to the technical college in Downingtown. And he said that it's not in the schools anymore. If you want to be involved with that, you have to go to the technical college,
Wow.
during high school. And it's a shame. Like, I've ordered, Mikey, the kits that you're talking to online before, but
Yep.
it's, you're putting a couple, little tiny pin nails in and
Yeah.
painting the thing. It's
Yeah. I mean, even from down like to watching. So my grandfather was a carpenter, my dad's dad,
right.
and uh, so as I grew up and my parents were having different things done to their house, my grandfather, he's no longer with us, but when he was, my dad would be his assistant, I guess,
Right.
and the dynamic was funny because he would always be like, he was always in charge, like, hey, give me this, give me that, and then I remember watching my dad do that stuff and just learning, and I think it's something lost, and it's not just you know carpentry and stuff like that. It's like, we get the kids' heads in a screen so fast that they like almost
Right.
miss all of that stuff.
So, when you were saying that, when I was growing up, um, I was always like tinkering with things, like, whatever project we had in, I guess, fourth, fifth grade, you had to, do something very simple, as much as like making a switch to turn a light bulb on. I wired like an alarm for a lunchbox, so on a lunchbox, so you could use it like on your door at your house. And, I remember my dad coming home one day. I took an entire wall down in my bedroom to make one closet into two, so I could have my TV recessed in the center. And that's like, nowadays, I would say there's 1% of what it was, when we were growing up. It's
Yeah. I remember this time. I always like watching my dad and my grandfather like spackle walls and
hmm
stuff. So there was a leak or no, there was a hole in the wall in my parents' bathroom. And I was like, oh, I'll fix that. Didn't tell him what I was doing. So like I cut it out, whatever, and then I drilled or like I was putting a screw in it and I screwed it in, but I got a really long screw, and it ended up screwing into the pipe to the shower. So I created a shower leak when I did that. But I will give myself some props. I think I did a good job on spackling the hole, but I created another problem. I thought it was pretty funny.
I have a client local here that, and if he ever hears this, he'll probably start hysterically laughing. He's not allowed to even hang a picture at this point, because they were in a townhome and he put a screw through the sprinkler pipe and flooded out the
Jeez.
whole place. So it was always like an ongoing joke. I did a big renovation for them when they moved, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm not even allowed to put a picture on the wall at this point."
That's why you hire the professionals, because it didn't like I was so focused on the one thing. I like, didn't even think about that. but but yeah. So when somebody hears this is a Zappitelli home, what do you want them to think about?
It's the relationship. It's the craft. I mean, we've had I have clients that I'm working for that go back to before I was even in grade school. I've stayed along with us because of the Zappitelli name. They know what they're getting. They know what they're dealing with. We have multiple clients like that, and they're 25 plus year clients. Um, it's it's the relationship, it's the respect, it's the honesty. I'm a very, sometimes too honest. Um, I'm very blunt. I want you to know exactly what you're getting. There is no, smoke and mirror game with me. When we design our specs, it's, everything's there in front of you. I don't want you to be guessing. Um, and I feel like that's, being able to deal with the owner of the company. It's how it was. That's something that was instilled from my dad growing up. He was always there. It was always him that, they dealt with. If there's a problem, which there's going to be problems in the industry, they call. Whether it's me, Lauren, but I think that's a big benefit. They know with our home what they're getting from, start to finish. Where I'm not by any means, cutting corners somewhere, to make a dollar.
Right. You said you do about how many homes a year?
Currently, we have 24 homes going. With that said, they're all in different stages. So they're,
Like
in the,
currently in progress?
in between the development process and actually coming out of the ground. Um, Typically, I deliver between like 5 and 6 homes a year, and
Okay.
that's because I'm not looking at quantity. We're a very small company, so I don't need to have numbers in place there to. It's more so that the customization. If it takes another 4 years to build these out, that's where we're at.
The quality and level of, home and construction that you guys are doing makes it make sense to where you guys just stay focused on creating the best home possible.
Yes.
Yep.
So
how's that one coming along in at Berwyn-Paoli?
it's going awesome. We're actually, the siding's going on now, and we're closing in, so we'll be ready to drywall here in about a couple of weeks, and that's walking potential clients through there. A lot of people can't see the vision, even if we put pictures on every wall of what each wall room will look
Right.
like. They can't see the vision until it's drywalled, so that's a huge stage for everybody.
That's awesome. And that one's coming summer?
Yes, we'll be ready. Yes, our goal is to have that end of summer for, especially if the client has kids, to be able to be in the school district there.
That's awesome. If somebody's looking, obviously you'd like them to call you, but if somebody is looking for a builder, hey, honey, why don't we go the new construction route? And they have a bunch of, I mean, unless they're savvy, there's a good chance they're going to look at the big box builders. Right. What advice would you give somebody as they start looking for a builder for their new home?
So I've had multiple people reach out to me over the years, like, hey, we, found your name online. We found your name through the HBA. I don't advertise, so I can't say that. Like I come up highly on Google, but it's word of mouth. And if somebody from out of town was coming in to look for a builder, very simply put, you're better off talking to somebody and getting, whether it's in these online groups like Facebook groups or whatever about the community. If you want that tight-knit relationship with a builder and the product that they're delivering, word of mouth. I mean, anybody can, I have signs with QR codes on. We have them all over developments, but when you scan that, you're going to figure out what you're getting. When you're scanning, other signs around here or, larger, what you're getting with a national builder. If you want to tighten it, again, it's just, a friendly conversation with somebody. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So when people are trying to work on thinking about their designs, and I'm sure this is something you take their input, and you guys work together to come up with like the game plan for the build, right? Do you ever take into consideration like what might be timeless versus not when you're doing this, or is it just all about what they want in that moment?
No, so we have a client now to where it's a renovation, and she wants updated modern amenities, features, but then you have the other part of her house that's it's timeless. It's things from the 90s, early 2000s, but they do carry through, and that's Lauren's very good at mixing that together and making it blend. We really honestly don't. We've gotten a handful of clients. We've done pink bathroom for a little girl before, so stuff like that to where it's very specific. We keep over and over. We're doing brick floors. We've been doing brick floors for I couldn't tell you how many years. The cabinet styles are starting to, I don't want to say evolve, but change a little bit right now. Colors are changing. I mean, Lauren's own kitchen, she's got, like dark hunter green cabinets in there. That might be a little trendy, but that's, client specific. The rest of, um, it all at time, it ties in,
Yeah.
it's more timeless. Nobody wants to be, on the verge of like a transition there. So we try to keep it to where, in 30
Yeah.
years, it's still what everybody's looking for.
I've seen homes built in the 1700s all the way through to now. Like
Yep.
any that, like, some of them just hold up.
Yeah.
Whoever designed that house, it just still works.
Yeah.
And then some of them, it's like you can tell they got whatever in the 1700s was the equivalent of a big box builder, and I'm like, this sucks, But they probably made it well, but yeah, but some of them, man, it's just like, it's crazy how something that old can end up being like, even the flow, it doesn't feel too small. It doesn't feel like
Right.
it just, I don't know how they managed to pull that off, but
I mean, the farmhouse that we just finished down the street here was built in 1776, and yeah,
yes.
when I got my hands on it, I learned a lot about it. Between the historic report and then what was going on in that house, and it took a lot. It took we spec'd it, and I learned why the walls were curved in the house. Around the windows, there's a whole bunch. I had so many people come through that own old houses within the Chester County area, and explaining little things to Lauren and I, and we took that and incorporated it into the design, the materials used, what we could salvage, what we couldn't, to make it all look like it was from that time period.
That's awesome. 1776.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah,
freaking.
it was a hell of a project.
That's awesome. Like, of all, it could be 1778. No, 1776. Freaking America. Okay, what is with your cabinets, right? I'm sure they're custom. Everything's custom, right? Is it a local company you get them from, or?
So they're about an hour and a half away.
Okay.
They are local. It's small. Again, family owned. It's I have direct contact with my my estimator there that puts everything together for me, and I have direct contact with the shop manager up there. It's full blown custom, and that's what I'm used to. That's, I would say, my edge, but that's the quality that I want in these houses. I'm not saying that there's little tiny renovations, laundry room here and there that we use stock cabinets, but these guys really cater. They're small. They really cater to me. It's
That's
almost,
awesome.
I equate to it as my own shop because they only take a handful of clients. It's not a big cabinet company by any means.
No, that's cool. Definitely. What other parts of the project do you like? Talk about some of the other people you work with. You're talking about the cabinets, custom, small, like, do a great job. Are there any other, maybe it's people who do help you with different aspects
Right.
of the builds?
I always go back. Everybody's like, how many people do you have working for you? How big are you want to grow, this and that. And when I just had this conversation with somebody last week, and they kind of looked at me like a deer in headlights when I said, I run everything. And I said, I have Lauren, certainly couldn't do it without her. And I hired, an apprentice about a year ago. My dad's always been involved, but more so, I would say at this point, what we would call punch list. And that's, the part that he enjoys, or what we also call MacGyver for, things that younger craftsmen can't figure out, don't have the experience with. It's family oriented. I have my plumber, who is also local. He's a family business. All his sons are involved, and they've been working with us for at least 20 years.
Like you said, the electricians, like
Yes,
yeah.
electrician. I keep a very tight knit group of subcontractors and vendors for that reason, to where I can pick up the phone or shoot off a text, and I'm not, I don't go through like a quote unquote bid pattern to pick the lowest guy. I know what it's going to cost, and it's the relationship just as much as the price. It's the relationship that you're
Oh,
getting,
it's
and
getting done right.
right, and I know what I'm expecting.
Yeah. So the dream team, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about any awards that you guys have won.
Most recently, the farmhouse that we were talking about, we won Best in PA Living for Best Historic Renovation.
How do you get even like in the running? Do you guys submit it? Does your client submit?
So for Best in PA Living, it's through the Delaware County, Chester County, and then Bucksmont Home Builder Association. They have a list of categories, and you can submit, a little blurb about it, and photos, and it's all judged by third-party board. So you have no idea,
Do they come out after
No.
they've submitted it?
No, we send everything into them.
Okay.
I honestly don't even know who it is that judges it.
That's cool.
And then, we have a gala
Nice.
in King of Prussia, and, it's a surprise at that time.
That's awesome.
In the past, to Lauren's recognition too, we actually won on her bathroom for the design. And then I would say like the one that everybody kind of most gravitates towards is Best of Main Line. And I did win that 2 years in a row. And that's, what you call reader's choice. It's,
Nice.
however many, clients, that's your true reputation in the area.
What does that mean to you when you get those awards?
So I'm not one to like really, and I'm reminded of this a lot. I'm not really one to like celebrate it. It's like almost like I don't know how to celebrate it. But it's my reputation. And once I see that award, it kind of goes back to that I'm, on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. And there's people out there, behind me that support me that you can still go back and work for after 20 years that, that's who they want in their house.
Would your dad agree with those awards, or does he still give you a little shit behind the scenes?
No, so to your point, like working with family, my dad's, told me numerous times, he goes, you've well surpassed and succeeded, what he's done. And, I know he's there behind me, rooting for me. He's still part of the business. There's still things that I call and, ask questions, bounce ideas off of, and you have to have that. You have to have that in this business to be able to talk to somebody else.
Do you see Zappitelli builders in 5 to 10 years?
When I was preparing for this was I would say like the hardest question. 8 years ago, I never would have saw myself where I'm at right now. I've had multiple people tell me, if you want to grow, you have to, hire blah, blah, blah. And I honestly don't want to grow to a point where I lose touch with the day to day. I respect everybody that works for me. I truly like being on site. And I don't need to build, 10, 15, 20 homes a year to turn $1 or be productive, profitable. I go to all these meetings, seminars. There's a, shortage of housing in this area. It's getting harder and harder to find land. I'm, say, lucky enough, but fortunate enough right now to, have the properties that I have and build them out. And we're just going to keep kind of, doing what we're doing. Whether we branch more so down to the Jersey Shore. We've talked about that. We've done projects down there.
You have done projects down there?
Yes.
That's a little bit different than up here, I guess, right?
It's different, but this is like a joke also. It's more relaxed, but I could probably pick up and move everything down there tomorrow and be busy for the next 10 to 20 years.
Are the logistics harder down there?
The logistics, not really. Like, most of my guys go down there to begin with. It's tighter. So it's tighter. You're dealing with different, climate. You're dealing with different soils, that part of it. I would say once your foundation's in, everything's kind of, the same going vertical as it is up here. It's, you have tight lot lines down there. I have a project in media we're doing now that I almost, you need like a helicopter to bring materials in. It's extremely tight. It's just it's a different mentality down there. I don't fish. It's, but it's kind of the mentality down there. Like, people say surfs up, like nobody's going to be working at your house. And if you have the drive, to stay on track, you could do very well down there.
Fair enough. When you brought up the shortage of housing, right? One of the things that I've talked about with other people is that it doesn't seem like people are building those starter homes anymore. Like even like some of these houses that you like little neighborhoods you'll see like on the main line, they're like you have more than two kids, you're like you need a bigger house, right? But they're smaller and they were more reason. I mean, now out there they're not they're not cheap. But like somebody was telling me, I said, why don't we just build more like neighborhoods with starter homes? And the answer from a lot of people is that doesn't work financially anymore. Is that accurate?
Yes, 100%. So, prior COVID, during COVID, use Lauren's house, her little development that I built there. That was starter homes for everybody in that subdivision. What their cost was now or was then is mid to high millions at this point, high 1 millions for the same exact product. It's things that people don't see. Stormwater management is a huge deal in this area, and it costs so much money and time with approvals. It's things behind the scenes that unfortunately people don't see and understand until I walk them through it, that X, Y, and Z contributes to the price. You can't, I've talked about multiple times with different investors, wholesalers, whoever, about buying a lot and doing small houses, little tiny houses, starter homes. But by the time you have the land cost, everything that goes associated with that, a starter home now is, above 700 around here at minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, they're getting there.
And that's not a new home either.
We're gonna hit $1 million for 2,000 square feet soon.
Yeah, easily.
It's crazy.
Yep.
This is a kind of a selfish question on my end. So I had a buddy who him and his wife bought a townhouse from a builder, bought it brand new. They had a 1-year warranty on their roof on a brand new home, and almost to the day, as soon as the warranty went out, a bunch of people in the neighborhood started having issues with the roofs.
Yep.
But when somebody gets their roof replaced, they give you a 15 to whatever year warranty on that roof.
Yep.
What the hell are the builders not doing that makes them fail?
Again, goes back to installers. Without sitting here and bashing some, I've watched installations where it's going on in full blown rain. They're using a subpar product. It's probably not being installed right, but it's also the product and the backing that product. I can count on one hand, maybe between 3 fingers over the past 20 years that I've gotten a call back for any kind of roof leak. And in all truthful honesty, it's probably been like where a shingle's blown off after 16 years, or they had ice damming because their gutters were full of leaves type thing. There's warranties from the manufacturers, and then there's warranties from the builder and our installer. It's the installation at the end of the day. I mean, you can put 2 different shingles side by side. Most people won't know the difference. it's the installation, because you're not, the building inspectors in the area, to give them credit, they're not out there when you're installing the
Yeah.
shingles. And if you're not following the protocol per the manufacturer, I would say that's your biggest
Yeah.
fail right there.
Yeah. It's just
And,
always mind blowing to me. Okay. I see a lot of homes. Obviously, we just talked about prices. They're getting up there.
yep,
$1 million isn't
that's the new normal.
$1 million used to be like if you saw a home that was a million, million two, whatever it was, some used to be really nice
Right.
houses. I remember the first 10,000 square foot home that I ever shot. Really nice house. It was actually the builder's personal home,
Right.
so it was all done
Yep.
really nice. It went for like $1.4 million.
Right.
And I mean, it was probably like 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Right.
But like it was a lot now. I don't even get excited about what the home could be when it's got $1 million price tag on it. However, I did do there's another custom builder. I don't want to be plugging other
Mm.
people with you. I'm sure you know the person. Um, did this small community of townhomes, and the work was just freaking impeccable. It was, I think, 2 million something, whatever it was.
Right.
And I walked in there and I'm like, I wouldn't even question this price because the work was so
Right.
good. Objectively, if you were to take, I mean, I know you got to be a little bit biased, right? But if you were to, take a step back and look at one of your finished projects, do you guys provide that level of value where people are just like, this is worth what we're paying for it?
Yes, and I've had multiple building inspectors compliment me. I actually have saved voicemails and text messages from them throughout different townships that they come in, they see from start to finish what you're doing and the level of quality. I've had clients, everybody obviously wants to stay within a budget, um, but to be able to, they've come back, the craftsmanship at the end of it during, saying, this is phenomenal. We've had, you know, for sake of this, our aunt, uncle come through here over the weekend, and they were like flabbergasted with, the quality. That's what I like to hear, and that's how I know that I have the right team. Because if I physically can't be self-performing every day, I want to know that it's our name at the end of the day on the house, and I want that same quality to carry through there.
But it's not even just the quality though, right? It's also like the design. Like it's
Right.
like it all like you can build a really nice house that looks like crap,
Right.
but you guys build really nice houses that
Yeah.
like they look and feel and everything. It's a whole package.
So I met with a very well-known custom builder in this area a few years back, and the company's still there, but he's basically retired, the owner. And for the size that I am, and he started, the way that I did, his number one thing to me was pick what you want in the house and, sell it from there. Don't try to compete. He goes, give what you want in the house, put the craftsmanship there, put the design, and, the people will come.
If you weren't building homes, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't golf and I don't fish. And
You're screwed.
We purchased an investment property down the shore a few years back, and honestly, that's where it's a different mindset down there. When we go down in the summer for vacation, I still work. I'll sit looking at the ocean. It's just mentally now in this business, that's where I'm at. It's family time. It's a breather on my brain. It's just, out of the day to day, whatever I can, back to what we said before, working with family, there is no pause button.
Nope.
So it's almost like that's, what I enjoy, going down there, riding a bike around with my family, walking the dog. It's just, I'm simple. It's, this industry can be very mentally challenging. And, I know that's why a lot of guys go fishing, golfing, and
Yeah, I need to turn it off
yeah,
sometimes, man.
it's hard to do.
Yep. Have you built your dream home yet?
So I built my home 11 years ago.
Would you say that's like you nailed everything you ever wanted in a house?
No.
No.
I was 28. So my wife was probably poor planning on our part, but we bought the land, built the house, and got married the same year.
Wow. Busy year.
And I had about 12 renovations going on at one time. So we were young, built it. We go through all the, Lauren got involved after that. We go through, see all these, designs, all the different plans that I've built now, house plans, and, what can go in there. But I keep going back to, we were 28. People, I'm always looking for like the next thing. It's just how I am. I don't want to say like impatient, but if I'm putting it in somebody else's house, I want it in my house because I want to be able to say, I have this, I like it, I don't like it, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's design features that, again, I'll, say to different people, our kitchen's set up like this, I don't like X about it, or, this is great. And it's, the personal experience.
So you're not just talking out your
butt.
butt.
Our biggest thing with our own house is we need a bigger kitchen because everybody always ends up around the island, and that's one of our biggest, design features.
Yeah. So that's all the main questions. I got one final question that we ask every one of our guests. Can you send us off with a positive message to the world? Yeah,
very simply, this industry in a whole, but specifically the trades, it's a dying art, and I urge any parent or young kid that has any kind of, whether male or female, has any kind of like to this business to get involved. And it could be me. I have, I'm not going to say I'm like a whiz or the best person to talk to, but there's people that are reaching out to me for advice on how to start a construction business or, what to do. And I've been around it long enough to where it's a craft. It's in my blood, and I would like to see it, carried through because people are always going to be there, and the houses are always going to be there. You need somebody to build, maintain, and renovate.
I love that. That's not our usual. Awesome. You got custom podcast just like the houses. But that's it, man. Cool.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.